The starship Celestial Accord floated in the darkness between three solar systems. It was a massive vessel, built not for war but for talking. 12 different alien species had sent their best diplomats here. They came to discuss trade, borders, and peace. The ship was neutral ground where enemies could sit at the same table without killing each other. Lieutenant stepped off the human shuttle and took her first breath of recycled air. She was 29 years old, with short black hair and tired eyes that had seen too much death. She was a medic, not a diplomat. Her job was simple: stay in the background, treat minor injuries, and smile politely at aliens who looked at humans like they were interesting insects. She carried a medical bag over her shoulder. Inside were tools she had modified herself. Scanners that could read alien biology, medicines adjusted for different blood types, a small defibrillator that could restart hearts with one chamber or 5, believed in being prepared. In her experience, people died when you were not ready. The welcome banquet was held in a great hall with transparent walls. Stars surrounded them on all sides. Long tables held food from 12 worlds. Some of it smelled wonderful. Some of it smelled like burning plastic. Stood near the human delegation, eating something that tasted like chicken but looked like blue pasta. She watched the aliens with quiet curiosity. They were massive, with skin and 4 arms. They laughed loudly and drank something that steamed. They were small and quick, their fur changing colors with their moods. And then there were had read about them during her journey here. They were beautiful in a cold way. Their skin was like living crystal, shifting between silver and pale blue. They moved with perfect grace as if every step was planned 1,000 years ago. They were also untouchable, literally. Their culture forbade physical contact with other species. To touch without permission was considered a crime worse than murder. They called it essence violation. The delegation was led by High Sovereign. She was tall, even for her kind, and her crystalline skin had a faint golden glow that marked her royal blood. She spoke to no one directly. Her aide, a younger named, handled all conversation. When walked past their table to refill her drink, she accidentally brushed against flowing robe. Turned her head slowly. Her eyes were like frozen lakes. "Human," she said, her voice flat, "you touched my garment." Bowed her head immediately. "I apologize, High Sovereign. It was an accident." "Your kind is clumsy," replied. "Keep your distance." Stepped back and said nothing more. She had dealt with difficult patients before. Alien royalty with attitude problems was not new to her. She returned to her corner and continued watching the room. 2 hours passed. Speeches were made. Toasts were raised. The Admiral told a joke that made half the room laugh and the other half confused. Was thinking about going back to her quarters when she noticed something wrong. High Sovereign was standing near the window looking at the stars, but she was not standing correctly. Her perfect posture had changed. She was leaning slightly to one side. Her crystalline skin, normally bright, had become dull. Her aide was speaking to another diplomat and had not noticed. Put down her drink and walked closer. She was not obvious about it. She pretended to admire the view of a nearby nebula, but her eyes stayed on. The High Sovereign's hand moved to her chest. Her fingers pressed against the crystal. Her breathing had changed. It was too fast, too shallow. Had seen this pattern 100 times before. Something was wrong with her heart. Then collapsed. She fell without sound, her body hitting the floor with a crystalline chime. The room went silent. Then chaos erupted. Guards rushed forward, forming a circle around their fallen leader, pushed through the crowd, his face showing pure terror. "Do not approach," a guard shouted. "No one touches the High Sovereign." Diplomats stepped back. They looked concerned. They whispered among themselves. The human ambassador grabbed arm. "Don't even think about it," he hissed. "This is not our problem." Pulled her arm free. She was already scanning from a distance with a device hidden in her palm. The readings confirmed her fear. Triple cardiac failure. They had 3 hearts and all of them were stopping. She pushed forward. A guard pointed a weapon at her face. The barrel glowed with deadly energy. "Stay back, human." "She's dying," said calmly. "Her hearts are failing. If someone doesn't help her in the next 3 minutes, she will be dead." Looked at her with desperate eyes. "Our physicians are on hour. The ship's medical bay doesn't have equipment. We have sent an emergency call, but—" 3 minutes, repeated. "A call won't save her." She took another step forward. The guard's finger tightened on the trigger. On the floor's eyes opened. They were clouded with pain, but she saw standing there. With tremendous effort, she spoke. "Human, I felt your warmth when you passed me earlier. It was revolting." She drew a ragged breath. "Don't touch me again. I would rather die with my essence intact than live with your contamination." The room waited for her to step back. Every species present understood. They had made their choice. Death before defilement, it was their right. Looked at the dying alien. She looked at the guards and their weapons. She looked at her own ambassador, who was shaking his head frantically. Then she smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was not a mocking smile. It was the smile of a woman who had made a decision and would not change her mind even if the universe itself told her she was wrong. She walked forward, knelt beside, and placed both hands directly on the High Sovereign's crystalline chest. The room exploded with screaming. His hands pressed against crystal that felt like cool glass under her palms. She could feel the vibration beneath the surface, 3 hearts struggling and failing like engines running out of fuel. Around her, the world had become noise and fury. The guards were shouting in their language. Her translator could not keep up with the speed of their words, but she understood the tone. They wanted to kill her. They wanted to tear her away from their sacred leader and put a hole through her skull. Only the confusion of the moment kept them from firing. "Remove your hands," screamed. His voice cracked with horror. "You are destroying her. You are destroying everything." Did not look up. Her fingers searched for the right position. Anatomy was different from human anatomy, but she had studied it. The 3 hearts were arranged in a triangle within the chest. 2 smaller ones on the sides, 1 large one in the center. All 3 needed to beat together. Right now, they were beating against each other, fighting instead of working. "Get the human away from her," someone shouted. It might have been the human ambassador, did not care. She pulled the small defibrillator from her bag. It was a simple device, no bigger than her hand. She had modified it herself during the long journey to this ship. At the time, she had not known why. She just believed in being ready. A guard grabbed her shoulder. His grip was strong enough to bruise. Looked up at him with eyes that showed no fear. "If you pull me away now, she dies," she said. "If you let me work for 5 more minutes, she might live. Choose." The guard hesitated. That hesitation was enough. Turned back too. The High Sovereign's eyes were closed now. Her breathing had become shallow. The golden glow in her crystal skin was fading like a sunset disappearing into night. "I need everyone quiet," announced. "And I need someone to tell me if her skin color means anything medical. Is she supposed to turn?" Pushed through the guards, his hands were shaking. "Is death," he whispered. "When we die, we become, then we shatter." "Not today," said. She placed the defibrillator against chest, right above the central heart. The device hummed as it charged. Watched the readings on her scanner. The hearts were slowing. She was running out of time. "This might not work," she admitted to no one in particular. "Biology is not my specialty, but I know hearts. Hearts are hearts. They want to beat. Sometimes they just need help remembering how." She pressed the button. His body jumped. The crystal skin flickered with light, then went dim again. The hearts continued their broken rhythm. "Again," muttered. She adjusted the power level and pressed the button a second time. Another jump, another flicker, still nothing. The Admiral had pushed his way to the front of the crowd. He was the largest being in the room, and he used his size to block the guards from rushing forward. His 4 arms were crossed over his massive chest. "Let the human work," he rumbled. I want to see what she does." "This is not entertainment," shouted at him. "This is our High Sovereign." "Exactly," the Admiral replied, "which is why you should let the only person trying to save her continue trying." Heard none of this. Her world had narrowed to the body beneath her hands. She put away the defibrillator and began chest compressions. The technique was different for. She had to press in 3 locations, rotating between them in a specific pattern. She had only read about this in medical texts. She had never practiced it on a real patient. Her arms burned with effort. Crystal was harder than human flesh. Each compression took more strength than the last. Sweat dripped from her forehead onto silver skin. "Come on," said through gritted teeth. "Come on, come on, come on." 1 minute passed, then 2. The room had grown quiet. Even the guards had stopped shouting. Everyone watched the small human woman fighting against death with nothing but her hands and her stubborn will. Knelt beside, his voice was hollow. "Even if you save her body, you have destroyed her spirit. Touch from another species corrupts our essence. She will be hollow inside, empty. She will never be whole again." Did not stop her compressions. "Then she will be an empty person who is alive," she replied. "I can work with that. Therapists can work with that. Time can work with that, but dead is forever. Dead has no second chances." "You don't understand our ways." "I understand death. Death is the same everywhere. It doesn't care about culture or tradition or sacred laws. It just takes. My job is to stop it from taking." 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Arms were screaming for rest. Her back ached. Her fingers had gone numb against the hard crystal, but she would not stop. She could not stop. Every patient she had lost, every time she had been too slow or too late, pushed her forward. Not this one, not today. 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Something changed. The scanner beeped. One of the side hearts had found a rhythm. Then the other side heart joined it. They beat together, weak but steady, like 2 tired dancers finding their steps. "Come on," whispered. "One more, just one more." 7 minutes. Her arms could barely move. She was operating on pure willpower now. Then the central heartbeat. It was a single thump, then a pause, then another thump, then another. The 3 hearts aligned. They beat together, not perfectly, but together. Gasped, air rushed into her lungs. Color returned to her crystal skin, silver and blue pushing away the terrible. Her eyes snapped open. Sat back on her heels. She was breathing almost as hard as her patient. Her arms hung limp at her sides. "Welcome back," she said. Stared at her. The High Sovereign's eyes were no longer clouded with pain. They were clear and sharp and filled with cold fury. "You," whispered, "what have you done to me?" Before could answer, the guards grabbed her and dragged her away. She did not resist. Her work was finished. The rest was not her problem. But as they pulled her through the crowd, she heard say something that made her smile despite everything. "She's alive. The High Sovereign is alive." Yes, thought as the guards threw her into a holding cell. She is alive, and that is all that matters. The holding cell was small and cold. There was a metal bench along one wall and a light in the ceiling that never turned off. Sat on the bench with her back against the wall and her eyes closed. She was tired. Her arms still ached from the compressions, but she felt no regret. Outside the cell, she could hear arguments, many voices speaking in many languages. Some demanded her execution. Some demanded her release. The whole ship had become a battlefield of words. The human ambassador came to see her first. He was an older man named Director Park, with hair and a face that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. He stood on the other side of the energy barrier that served as a door. "Do you understand what you've done?" he asked. His voice was quiet but could hear the anger beneath it. "I saved a life," she replied without opening her eyes. "You touched a High Sovereign without consent. That's a crime punishable by eternal entombment. They seal criminals in crystal and leave them aware but frozen forever. And because you're human, this could destroy 5 years of diplomatic work. Trade deals, peace agreements, all of it. Opened her eyes. She was dying. She told you not to touch her. Yes. She specifically said she would rather die. Yes. And you touched her anyway. Met his gaze. Director Park, I have been a medic for 11 years. I have watched patients die because I was too slow. I have held people's hands while they took their last breath. I have written letters to families telling them their loved ones would not come home. She stood up and walked to the barrier. I do not let people die if I can stop it. That is who I am. That is what I do. If they want to put me in crystal forever, they can try, but I will not apologize for saving a life. The director stared at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head and walked away without another word. Hours passed. Slept on the bench, her medical bag used as a pillow. She dreamed of hearts beating and crystals shattering and hands that would not stop working no matter how much they hurt. She woke to the sound of footsteps. Someone was approaching her cell. She expected guards or lawyers or perhaps an executioner. Instead, she saw. The young aide stood before the energy barrier. His crystal skin had lost some of its shine. He looked exhausted, like he had not rested since the incident. His eyes studied with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. The High Sovereign wishes to speak with you, he said. Sat up, is that normal, for the victim to visit the criminal? Nothing about this is normal. Pressed a button and the energy barrier flickered off. Come with me. They walked through the ship's corridors. Guards followed at a distance, their weapons ready. Other aliens stepped aside as they passed, watching with expressions ranging from admiration to disgust. She ignored them all. The medical bay was bright and clean. Advanced equipment lined the walls, machines from 12 different worlds designed to heal 12 different biologies. In the center of the room, on a bed made of woven light, High Sovereign sat upright. She looked stronger than before. Her crystal skin had regained its silver-blue color, and the golden glow of her royal blood had returned. But there was something different in her eyes. The cold fury had been replaced by something could not identify. Leave us, commanded. The guards hesitated, stepped forward. High Sovereign, this human has committed. I know what she has committed. I was there. Leave us. The guards and retreated to the far side of the room. They remained visible but out of hearing range, stood at the foot of his bed and waited. For a long moment neither spoke, then asked a single word. Why? Considered several answers, because it was her duty, because she was trained to help, because human medical ethics demanded it. All of these were true, but they were not the complete truth. Because you were dying, she said finally, and I could stop it. I told you not to touch me. You did. My guards would have killed you. Probably. And still you touched me. His voice was not angry. It was genuinely puzzled, as if it was a math problem she could not solve. I have been High Sovereign for 300 years. In that time, no being has ever disregarded my commands so completely. My words are law. My wishes are absolute. When I say do not touch me, the universe itself should listen. Smiled slightly. I'm a medic, High Sovereign. We have our own law. Our law says that saving life comes first, before politics, before tradition, before the wishes of the patient. If someone is dying and I can help, I help. That is my law. Your law is above my law. When it comes to keeping you alive, yes. Stared at her, then something unexpected happened. The corners of her crystalline mouth curved upward. It was small and brief, but it was unmistakably a smile. You are either the bravest human I have ever met, said, or the most foolish. Probably both, admitted. The council wants to punish you. Half of them want you entombed. The other half want you returned to humanity in disgrace. Paused. But I have not yet given my testimony. As the victim, my words will carry great weight. His heart beat faster, though she kept her face calm. And what will you say? Looked down at her own hands. crystal fingers that had almost turned two, a body that had almost shattered into a million pieces. "I do not know yet," she admitted. "I need to understand something first. Your people humans, you have rules about consent, about respecting wishes, about not forcing your will on others. Yes." "Yes." "Then how can your medical law override these rules? How can you justify touching someone who has clearly said no?" Took a breath. This was the question at the heart of everything. "Because sometimes," she said slowly, "people say no when they don't understand the full situation. Sometimes fear or pride or tradition makes them refuse help they desperately need. In emergencies, we have a principle. We assume consent. We believe that if the patient knew they could be saved, they would want to be saved. We act first and ask forgiveness later. And if you are wrong, if the patient truly wanted death, then we have made a mistake. But a living patient can always choose death later. A dead patient cannot choose life." Stepped closer. "I did not know if I could save you, High Sovereign. I only knew that if I did nothing, you would certainly die. So I chose action. I chose to give you a chance. What you do with that chance is not my decision." Was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was soft. "I felt your hands on my chest. During those 7 minutes, I was aware of everything. The warmth of your skin, the pressure of your fingers, the determination in your touch." She looked up at. "I expected to feel violated, corrupted, wrong, but I did not feel those things." "What did you feel?" His eyes met hers. "I felt someone fighting for me, not for my title or my power or my political value, fighting for me, for my life, as if I mattered simply because I was alive." A single tear of liquid crystal rolled down her cheek. "No one has ever fought for me like that," she whispered. "Not in 300 years." Said nothing. Sometimes silence was the kindest response. Finally straightened. The moment of vulnerability passed, replaced by royal composure. "I will testify tomorrow," she announced. "Not as your accuser, human, as your witness. The council may not like what I have to say." Bowed her head. "Thank you, High Sovereign." "Do not thank me yet. The council is stubborn and our laws are ancient. But I will speak the truth as I experienced it. That is all I can promise." As guards led back to her cell, she allowed herself a small hope. Perhaps this would not end in crystal entombment after all. Perhaps. The night before the tribunal was the longest of his life. She lay on the metal bench in her cell, staring at the ceiling that never went dark. Sleep would not come. Her mind kept replaying every moment, falling, the guards shouting, her hands pressing against crystal, the first heartbeat returning. She did not regret her choice, but she was afraid. Not of death or entombment, though both were terrible possibilities. She was afraid of what her actions might cost others. If the demanded revenge against humanity, innocent people would suffer, trade would collapse, wars might begin, all because she could not let one alien die. Was that selfish? Was saving one life worth risking thousands? She had no answer. Near midnight, the energy barrier flickered, stepped into her cell. He carried a small container in his hands. "I brought you food," he said quietly. "Human food. I found it in the diplomatic kitchens." Sat up surprised. "Thank you, you didn't have to do that." "I know." Set the container on the bench beside her. He did not leave. Instead, he stood there, looking uncomfortable, like he wanted to say something but could not find the words. "Sit down," said gently. "You look exhausted." Hesitated, then sat at the far end of the bench. He kept as much distance between them as the small cell allowed. "I don't understand you," he admitted. "I have studied humans, your history, your culture, your biology. I thought I understood what you were, but you," he shook his head, "you make no sense." "What don't you understand?" "Everything." His voice cracked with frustration. "Why did you do it? Why risk everything? The High Sovereign insulted you. She called your touch revolting. She commanded you to stay away, and yet you saved her anyway. Why?" Opened the food container. Inside was rice and vegetables and something that might have been fish. She picked up the utensils and began to eat, taking her time with her answer. "When I was young," she said between bites, "my grandmother got sick, very sick. Her heart was failing like the High Sovereigns, but we lived in a small village with no hospital. By the time we reached the city, it was too late." She paused, memories rising like old ghosts. "I was 12 years old. I held her hand while she died, and I made a promise to myself that day. I would become a healer. I would learn everything about medicine, and I would never, ever let someone die if I had the power to save them." "But the High Sovereign is not your grandmother." "No, but she was dying, and I had the power. That is all that matters to me." Looked at. People say things when they're scared or in pain. They say things they don't mean. The High Sovereign told me not to touch her because that is what her culture taught her to say. But deep down, beneath all the traditions and laws, I believe she wanted to live. All living things want to live. That's the most basic truth in the universe. Was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer. "I should tell you something about our touch prohibition." Set down her utensils. "I'm listening." "We tell other species that touch is sacred, that it corrupts our essence, that our spirits cannot survive contact with alien beings." Crystal's skin flickered with shame. "This is not entirely true." "What do you mean?" "Thousands of years ago, our people faced a great plague. It spread through physical contact. Billions died. Entire cities turned to dust in a single night." His voice trembled at the memory of stories passed down through generations. The survivors developed extreme fear of touch. They created laws forbidding contact. They invented religious reasons to justify these laws. Over time, the medical truth was forgotten. Only the prohibition remained. Leaned forward. "So the touch taboo is based on fear of disease, not spiritual corruption." "Yes. But our people have believed the spiritual version for so long that it has become true to them. If a believes touch will corrupt their essence, they will feel corrupted even if nothing physical has happened. The mind is powerful." "Then why are you telling me this?" Met her eyes. "Because the High Sovereign asked me to. After you left her, she demanded to know the true history. I told her everything our scholars have kept hidden for centuries. She was shocked." "And what did she say?" "She said she felt something during those 7 minutes you worked on her. Not corruption, not violation, something else." Paused. "She said she felt warmth, not just temperature, but warmth, like being wrapped in comfort, like being held by someone who truly cared." Tears welled in his eyes, though she blinked them back quickly. "She said no one has ever touched her like that," continued. "Her family touches her with formal respect. Her servants touch her with careful fear, but you touched her with," he searched for the right word, "purpose, determination, love." "I don't love her. I don't even know her." "Perhaps that is the wrong word, but there is something in humans, something we do not have. You touch to heal, you touch to comfort, you touch to connect. We have lost that ability." He looked down at his own crystal hands. "We have made ourselves cold because we were afraid of warmth." Reached out slowly, giving time to pull away if he wanted. He did not move. She placed her hand gently on top of his. The crystal was cool against her skin, but beneath it she felt a faint pulse, a heartbeat. Trembled. His eyes widened with something that might have been fear or wonder or both. "This is the first time anyone outside my species has touched me," he whispered. "How does it feel?" He took a shaky breath. "It feels warm." They stayed like that for a moment, then her hand. The moment passed, but something had changed. "Thank you for telling me the truth," she said. "I understand your people better now." Stood, he still looked uncertain, but the confusion in his eyes had been replaced by something new. Something that looked almost like hope. "Tomorrow the tribunal will decide your fate," he said. "The High Sovereign will speak for you, but I do not know if it will be enough. Our laws are ancient. Our people are stubborn." Then we will see what tomorrow brings. You are not afraid. Smiled, I am terrified. But I learned a long time ago that fear should not control what I do. I did what I believed was right. The rest is not in my hands. Bowed his head, a gesture of respect. I hope our people can learn from you, Lieutenant. Perhaps it is time for them to stop being so cold. He left the cell, the energy barrier flickering back into place behind him. Finished her food and lay back on the bench. For the first time in days, she felt something like peace. Whatever happened tomorrow, she had planted a seed. In everyone who had witnessed what happened. Perhaps that seed would grow into something beautiful. Perhaps it would be crushed by old traditions and ancient fears. Either way, she would face tomorrow standing tall. That was the human way. The tribunal chamber was a massive room at the heart of the celestial accord. Seats rose in circles like a stadium, filled with representatives from all 12 species. They sat in reinforced chairs built for their size. They clustered together, their fur changing colors as they whispered. The delegation occupied the highest tier, their crystal skin catching the light like frozen stars. Stood in the center of the room, alone. She wore her medical uniform, cleaned and pressed. Her hands were clasped behind her back, her spine straight. She had decided to face her judgment with dignity, no matter what verdict came. The tribunal leader was an ancient named Elder. His crystal had turned nearly white with age, and his movements were slow and careful. He studied with eyes that had seen centuries of history. "Lieutenant of the Terran Medical Corps," he announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. "You stand accused of essence violation against High Sovereign. This is the most serious crime in law. The punishment is eternal entombment. Before we proceed, do you have anything to say?" Had prepared no speech. She had decided to speak from her heart. "I saved a life," she said simply. "I would do it again." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species nodded with approval. Others hissed with anger. They glared at her with open hostility. Elder raised his hand for silence. "The accused admits her crime without apology. Before we pass judgment, we will hear testimony. High Sovereign has requested to speak." Rose from her seat in the highest tier. She walked down the steps with perfect grace, her golden glow bright in the chamber's light. Every eye followed her. She was not just the victim of this crime. She was the most powerful alive. Her words would shape everything. She stood before the tribunal facing. For a moment, neither spoke. Then turned to address the chamber. "3 days ago I died." Silence fell like a heavy blanket. My hearts failed. My crystal began to turn. I felt my essence slipping away into darkness. I had accepted my fate. I was ready to become dust and join my ancestors. Her voice was calm but powerful. And then this human placed her hands on my chest. She looked at. I told her not to touch me. I said I would rather die than be defiled. These were the words our culture taught me to say. These were the beliefs I had held for 300 years. Paused. I was wrong. Gasps erupted from the delegation. Closed his eyes, bracing for what came next. For 7 minutes, Lieutenant fought for my life. She pressed her warm hands against my cold crystal. She forced my hearts to beat when they wanted to stop. She refused to let me die, even though I commanded her to let me go. His voice grew stronger. And in those 7 minutes, I learned something that our people have forgotten. She turned to face her own delegation. The touch prohibition was created from fear, not wisdom. Thousands of years ago, a plague nearly destroyed us. Our ancestors built walls of law and tradition to protect themselves. They invented spiritual reasons to justify physical fear. Over time, we forgot the truth. We convinced ourselves that touch was dangerous because we were too afraid to remember why we were really afraid. Elder's eyes widened. High Sovereign, these claims are. True, interrupted. I have read the ancient records. I have spoken with our oldest scholars. The essence violation is a myth we created to cope with trauma. The real danger was disease, and that danger passed centuries ago. She let her words hang in the air. We have been hiding from shadows, and this human walked straight into those shadows to save my life. She turned back too. I felt your touch, Lieutenant. I expected corruption. I expected horror. Instead, I felt something I have never felt before. Warmth. Connection. The knowledge that another being was fighting for me, not because I was powerful or important, but because I was alive, because all life is worth saving. Took a step closer too. The guards tensed, but no one moved to stop her. Among my people, there is no greater crime than unwanted touch, but there is also no greater gift than life itself. This human gave me that gift. She gave it without asking for reward. She gave it knowing it might cost her everything. She extended her crystalline hand. Today I propose something unprecedented, a new law, a new understanding between our peoples. The chamber held its breath. Touch me again, Lieutenant said, not in desperation, not in emergency, in friendship, in peace. Show my people that touch does not have to be violation. Show them it can be connection. Looked at the offered hand. She understood the weight of this moment. For this was not just forgiveness. This was revolution. Thousands of years of tradition balanced on this single choice. She reached out and took his hand. The crystal was cool against her palm, but beneath the surface she felt the steady rhythm of 3 hearts beating, strong, healthy, alive. Smiled. It was a small expression, but on a face, it was like the sun breaking through clouds. I declare this human innocent, announced. More than innocent. I declare her a friend of the people. Her actions were not a crime. They were a lesson we needed to learn. Elder looked uncertain. The other were frozen with shock, but no one spoke against their high sovereign. Furthermore, continued, I propose the creation of a new diplomatic principle. The exception. In cases of medical emergency, life-saving intervention shall transcend cultural prohibition. Any being who saves another being's life, regardless of species or tradition, shall be protected under this exception. The Admiral rose from his seat. His deep voice boomed through the chamber. The Confederation supports this proposal. Other species followed. One by one, delegates stood to show their support. The humans, even species had never spoken to. Within minutes, the majority of the chamber was on their feet. Only the remained seated, their faces dark with disapproval. Elder looked at them, then he looked at, still holding his sovereign's hand. The tribunal is dissolved, he said finally. No punishment will be given. The exception is approved by majority vote. The chamber erupted in applause and argument, but barely heard it. She was looking at this strange and beautiful alien who had nearly died and now stood beside her as an ally. Thank you, said quietly. Thank you, replied. You gave me a tomorrow. Now I will give you something in return, a promise. What promise? That the will change. It will take time. Many of my people will resist, but I will lead them toward warmth instead of cold, toward connection instead of isolation. She squeezed his hand gently. You planted a seed, Lieutenant. I will help it grow. Years later, served as the first human ambassador too. She was known across the galaxy as the woman who touched the untouchable. It was a title she never quite got used to. At her inauguration ceremony, Empress broke 10,000 years of tradition by embracing her in public. The crowd gasped, some wept, a few walked out in protest. But most of them watched with wonder as 2 beings from different worlds held each other like old friends. You should have listened when I said don't touch me, murmured against the shoulder. Laughed softly, and you should have known that humans are terrible at following orders. They parted, but their hands remained connected. Behind them, the sun rose over the crystal towers of. A new day was beginning. A new era of understanding between species who had once been strangers. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that one stubborn medic had refused to forget. All life is worth saving, even if you have to break a few rules to save it.